will hear for the first time from a father furious over the death of his 5-year-old son.
He says the Department of Child Services failed to protect his child after dozens of reports of child abuse. Our Alexis McAdams has that story tonight.
The sweetest soul you could ever meet. I took him everywhere. He was attached to my hip everywhere we went, even at home.
Brayson Price was just 5 years old when he died.
He was my life, and he will always continue to be my life.
I mean, you can see all the bruising.
Police say Brayson was abused for years. His death was ruled a homicide, the cause intentional overdose and suffocation. His mom and her boyfriend are now serving time, found guilty in connection to Brayson's death.
39 years is a long time, but how much is a child's life worth? Does it fit?
Brayson's father, Justin Morgan, never got to say goodbye to his son, who he only had supervised visits with because of ongoing custody disputes.
I was living with her up until he was about 1.5 years. Okay. That's when she started to cut me out of Brayson's life. It got very, very difficult to see him.
While Morgan was fighting for custody, police say Brayson was stuck in a living nightmare of repeated abuse. Court records even show Megan Price and Jason Ingalls Googled the phrases most painful forms of torture and killing techniques.
The first time I called DCS was when he broke his leg.
Court records show the extent of the abuse the little boy endured. Over the years, Brayson suffered a broken arm, broken femur, and numerous burns and bruises. In 2014, an aunt called DCS after she noticed a handprint and bruises all over the child's body. Then in 2015, someone called to alert the agency the child had a broken femur. Morgan told DCS his son identified Ingalls as the abuser. In 2016, a school bus aide called DCS, telling them she overheard Price threatening Brayson at the bus stop and that the child was covered in bruises. At that same time, Morgan says a school nurse checked Brayson for injuries every day, then sent the photos to DCS.
One of them, he had a busted lip. She would constantly find bruises on him, all over his body. And she would take pictures. And she gave these pictures to DCS. And still the balls dropped.
Within days, Price pulled Brayson out of school. She told investigators her son would self-harm.
This is her story every single time. It's self-inflicted. He did it to himself. How can a 35-pound little 5-year-old boy hurt himself?
About a month later, Brayson was dead. Now, 2 years after Brayson's death, Morgan still puts much of the blame on DCS. He filed a wrongful death lawsuit claiming the agency was complicit in the death of his son. According to the lawsuit, DCS received at least 11 reports of suspected abuse prior to Brayson's death. 7 adults, including Morgan himself, a teacher, a school nurse, a bus aide, a guidance center employee, and other family members called. According to court documents, each time the state agency could not substantiate any of the allegations.
These are people from all walks of life that tried to protect him.
They're not the only ones to blame. The Department of Child Services, if they would have stepped in, if they would have removed the child on even one of those occasions and actually tried to get to the bottom of how this is occurring, he'd still be alive.
Things need to be changed.
I reached out to the Department of Child Services. A spokesperson with the agency tells me they do not comment on pending litigation or specific cases due to privacy concerns. Tonight, Ingalls and Price remain behind bars. It's a story we'll continue to follow.
New documents obtained by Fox 59 Investigates now shows the pain a Madison County toddler endured before he was murdered.
It's a horrific story. Harlan Haynes died earlier this year. He was just 1 year old. And tonight, Fox 59's Gabby Gonzalez joins us. She has been following this case for months now.
Yeah, Gabby is in studio, and Gabby, we understand this is just almost too difficult for words.
It was honestly very hard to go through these documents. Earlier this year, we told you about the suspicious injuries that Harlan Haynes arrived at the hospital with in December 2017, about 2 months before his death. Now, for the first time, we're seeing images of what DCS caseworkers saw that day Weeks later, the investigation into this was closed, and Harlan remained in the care of those now charged in connection to his death. We do want to warn you, some of these images are disturbing. This was the child DCS caseworkers encountered back on December 27th, 2017 at St. Vincent Hospital.
I can't imagine what this poor child went through.
These pictures were released by the Madison County Court this week. 1-year-old Harlan Haynes' eyes were swollen and bruised, as was his ear, and he had a fractured leg. His mom, Jennifer Haynes, said a Christmas tree fell on him.
The description that the mother made to the physicians at Riley about the injuries just simply didn't make sense, and the physicians brought that to the attention of the DCS caseworkers. It didn't seem to have much persuasive authority with them.
The DCS investigation into this was finalized a few weeks later and found no evidence of abuse or neglect. There are no notes in DCS files about follow-up visits to the home.
It still mystifies me how the DCS caseworkers can see this child in December and the injuries and think it's a good idea to return the child back to the family. I have no idea how that decision can be made.
The next time Harlan was in the hospital, this was his condition. He arrived in cardiac arrest, and according to these documents, it took staff 15 minutes of doing CPR to bring him back. The toddler died on February 25th. Doctors found evidence of physical and sexual abuse. His mom and her boyfriend, Dylan Tate, faced charges in connection to the death. As they face the justice system, the Madison County prosecutor says he wishes there had been more intervention prior to this tragic end to a child's life.
There's a problem at DCS, and I'm not pointing fingers at anyone. I'm not pointing fingers at the governor or the people there, the training. They need to figure it out. The children we are charged with protecting are not being protected, and someone needs to figure it out and do something about it.
I reached out to DCS today about these new photos and documents. They say they have no further comment on this case, but a spokesperson said, quote, "Our hearts break any time a child has been lost. The Anderson community should know we too grieve the death of Harlan Haynes." Dan?
Fox 59's Matt Smith is digging deeper into these numbers today. He is joining us now with details. Matt.
Fanchon and Dan, let's talk big picture here tonight. This is data from 2016, and tonight we've learned dozens of Hoosier kids died, and oftentimes brutal death. This is Today Lawmakers press DCS for more answers, as both the agency and lawmakers are working tonight to help change the system. 2016 brought another deadly year for Indiana kids. The state says 59 children statewide died from abuse or neglect. That, though, is an improvement from the previous 2 fiscal years. Marion County saw the highest number of child deaths at 14. Of the 59, DCS says 9 had previous contact with the agency, and the documents tell the stories. A 1-month-old dying of multiple blunt force trauma injuries, a 9-month-old dying from blunt force trauma to the head, an 8-month-old found with a traumatic brain injury from child abuse. Those just 3 of 59 examples.
I understand how emotional these issues are.
Today, DCS officials appeared before lawmakers, testifying on a set of recommendations to make the agency better as lawmakers seek answers.
There have been cases where they were not responded to for hours or even days, and they died.
I don't disagree with your comment.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
A major question is response time. Right now, DCS caseworkers are required to respond within 1 hour to reports that a child is in imminent danger. Today, DCS officials recommended changing that to no more than 4 hours. That's still much less than a full day, which lawmakers were considering earlier.
We are obviously going to respond as quickly and immediately as possible when the circumstances dictate that. You can rest assured that that will happen.
There has to be something to indicate to a caseworker that this is an urgent matter, that this is a drop everything moment.
Lots of conversations still ongoing tonight. Lawmakers will eventually be turning these conversations into legislation and potential new state laws. They are also calling on DCS for more data, current data from 2017, for a clearer picture of what's happening right now in our state.